Greetings, programs, and welcome to Emergency Rambling video number 3. Now, I'm doing this because I've got an important update. My thermal paste has arrived. Huzzah! Of course, now it's arrived, I've got to get everything set back up again, including reinstalling all the stuff that I need. So, this might take another couple of days, but it won't take as long as it did last time I had to install an OS from scratch, because my internet speeds, or more importantly my download speeds, are better these days, so grabbing everything I need isn't going to take quite so many hours. So, that's all great. That's fantastic news. Hopefully by the weekend I will be set up to the point where I can at least have Wooler tanks and warships installed and maybe one or two other things. And even if I don't have all the files from the old drive pulled off by that point, I should still be able to start making proper gameplay videos again. So yeah, it's been a bit of an impromptu holiday, but I don't know, it's been nice catching up with stuff and reading and watching things I've not watched before and rewatching things, and it's been a little bit relaxing, but of course it's not particularly great for the channel and it's not particularly great for you guys. Now I'm going to talk about, talking of stuff I watched, I'm going to have another ramble about a thing that I've been rewatching. It's actually a thing I mentioned in the second video, but I'm first going to have a little announcement. I've decided that because I'm now doing the stuff with the books videos, and that I'm actually rather enjoying doing these videos where I talk about television, and potentially I could talk about films as well, that I'm going to start a second separate channel just for all the non-video game stuff. And it's probably going to be rather less frequently updated than this channel. Well, this channel as you're watching it now, because this might well get re-uploaded to the second channel, in which case that's all very, very confusing and makes no sense. But you know what I mean. My main channel and my secondary channel, let's put it that way. So yeah, what I will do is, once I've got everything set back up and I've got access to the files that I need, like all the TOG wallpaper backgrounds and all that kind of thing, and Photoshop's reinstalled, I will start properly getting that set up, and I will re-upload the first couple of books videos and probably these emergency rambling videos as well to that second channel, and you can expect to see content there popping up. Oh, I don't even know how often it'll be. I'll figure something out. So that's going to be at PointyHairedJedi. I will put some kind of annotation on the screen. I did consider various possibilities, but in the end it was Circon's Twitch chat that helped me decide on that. There were a couple of other suggestions as well, but that's the one I decided I liked. So yes, once again, PointyHairedJedi. And if you've been enjoying all the books videos, and if you've been enjoying these videos, then you can go and sub there, and you will get more of the same. And in a way, it's good news for everybody else as well, because it means if you don't like that content, it's no longer going to be popping up on your feed from the PointyHairedJedi channel. It's all going to now be on a separate channel entirely. So, what am I going to talk about today? Well, it's either Planetes or Planetes. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but it is the anime that I mentioned in the second emergency rambling video, and like I said, it's really good. In fact, having talked about it, I've gone back and rewatched now something like the first 7 episodes online, and it's as good as I remember. Now, what it is a series set in 2075, and it's mostly set in space, although at various points they're on the moon, and I think they come down to Earth for 1 or 2 episodes as well. But it is a story that is extremely firmly grounded in real space flight. There's no any kind of... It barely qualifies as science fiction. I mean, it is, but there's no real fantastical elements about it. It basically requires no suspension of disbelief whatsoever. It's not like Steins Gate, where, yes, it's rooted in a lot of real-life physics concepts, but at the end of the day, it's a time travel story, and you've got to suspend your disbelief a little bit at the very least. But not so with Planetes. or well, I could just call it Wanderers, because it's unusual in that it's an anime, or well, it started off as a manga and was then adapted to an anime. It's a Greek word, and it's what the ancient Greeks called planets, because these. It didn't take them long to figure out that these weren't just normal stars, and that's where we get the word planets from in English, is from this Greek word. But Wanderers is it's set in the year 2075, and it's all about space junk collection, because this is it's kind of imagining an era where commercial spaceflight, passenger spaceflight, is incredibly common. It's just a commonplace thing, but as it says in the prologue, after a disaster with a commercial passenger spaceship, which gets hit by a piece of space debris and a bunch of people die, they realise that, oh crap, we've got a serious problem here, because there's a lot of space junk in orbit. Now, there's actually space junk up there right now, and it's not just dead satellites. It's stuff like stages from rockets or fuel tanks or whatever. There's all this stuff, and where possible, things get brought down. I mean, like the Mir space station's a really good example. They actually brought that down over the Pacific, although I think didn't one or two bits crash into Australia or something, I can't remember. But there's still a lot of really, like, even paint flecks. You can find a picture of, and I can't remember which space shuttle it was, but it got hit by a paint fleck that was travelling at really high velocity, and actually made a little gouge in one of the space shuttle windows. And I wish I could remember which shuttle mission that was now, or even which shuttle. But it's a real problem. And this is, it's gotten to the point in this future where various companies are basically, they explain it like an almost carbon credit scheme, where the companies go out and collect the space junk, and depending on the junk that they're assigned to collect, it's worth a certain amount of points, and then they then get paid by this. I can't quite tell if it's supposed to be like the UN or if it's supposed to be like a super NATO, but this kind of international organization called INTO, which is just the International Treaty Organization, is what that stands for. And they apparently are some kind of, world authority, in that they basically police space, and they're the ones that also pay out for the removal of this space junk. So the story starts off with brand new recruit Ai Tanabe joining one of these companies called Technora, and it's a bit of a common device. You have a character joining a team for the first time or whatever, and then they kind of are then able to use that to explain various things to them, and therefore explain it to the viewer at the same time. But she's kind of fresh-faced, quite naive almost, and ends up joining this junk collection team, who are, in terms of the company ladder, they're right down at the bottom, and they're kind of underfunded, understaffed, and generally a collection of misfits. And it really does kind of concentrate on them as a team. There's various other characters get brought in along the way, but it's all about the crew of this junk collecting ship, the Toy Box. And you've also got a couple of comic relief characters as well. The section manager and the section chief are both basically just like comic relief characters, but they're not annoying. They actually, I think they flesh them out a bit later in the series as well. But despite the fact that they are a bit gimmicky and they are just, comic relief, they actually do it rather well. So yeah, basically, a lot of it is, it's one of these ones where it's like she comes in and she's kind of naive and full of optimism, and along the way, like, the rest of the team are a bit more jaded, and the other main character, who's I can't remember his full name, but he's nicknamed Hashimaki, and that's what everyone basically calls him. He comes across as being quite jaded and like worldly wise, and very rapidly you learn that actually no, he's kind of got this this idealistic side about him almost as well, except it's more, in his case, his dream is to own a spaceship, basically, and along the way he gets a bit kind of disillusioned by all this, and rather, I wouldn't say depressed almost, but it's kind of like there's this whole interaction going on with Tanabe and just the rest of the team generally, where she's kind of constantly rubbing up against them and you know, trying to get them all to be more optimistic and hopeful about things, and it's kind of like she's changing them, but they end up kind of, you know, she matures along the way as well as the series progresses. You know, also at the core of it is that there is a romance that very kind of starts to unfold between Tanabe and Hashimaki, and it becomes clear within the first couple of episodes that this is where that's headed. Like they almost immediately kind of start to rub each other the wrong way. Like they're she's kind of constantly upbraiding him, and he just gets completely fed up. But it's done in such a way that you think, yeah, okay, they're going to end up as a thing, aren't they? And, you know, they do. And this is what led me to say that it is, like the whole thing, like apparently the manga is very much more kind of philosophical. It's almost like, and this is a very apt comparison to bring in, 2001 A Space Odyssey. It's like that in feel, actually. All the spaceflight sections, it's a very good comparison. There's something very Clarkian about this entire series. But 2001... basically, Clark was writing it pretty much at the same time as Kubrick was making the film, and they were kind of bouncing off each other. Now, it's not quite the same with Wanderers, but they started making the anime before the manga that it's adapted from. I think there was only something like 3 volumes published before they actually started making the anime. So there is some divergence between the anime and the manga, and apparently the manga is very much more kind of philosophical in tones. They spend a lot more time kind of exploring like, you know, man's place in space and what this means to the various characters and how they feel about it. But there's an element of that in the anime as well, and it's interesting that it kind of like, it really has a feel about it that means that I think it would not be inaccurate for me to say that this is a romance in space, but also it's a romance of space as well. And I'm pretty sure I said that in the second video, but I was just so pleased with coming up with that you know, I'm going to say it again. So yeah, it's got a really nice feel. If you ever liked like even like IMAX films of you know, shuttle flights and stuff like that, like if you've got any interest in real space flight, this is a really good show. Or if you like serious, sober science fiction, despite the fact that it does have some comic relief characters in it, this is a really good show. And if you don't even consider yourself a person that would ever like anime, but you like science fiction, I would say this is a show to watch, because it's the kind of show that the way they do it could easily be live action, but it would be an incredibly expensive show to make, because they do a lot of EVA scenes. They do a lot of scenes where they're weightless and bouncing around. There's even scenes where like they're on the moon and they do various kind of like leaping around in 1/6 gravity. And you could do it. I mean, the film Gravity shows that we have the special effects technology to do these kind of things very convincingly these days. But it would be incredibly wow, I can't speak. It would be incredibly expensive to do. And so the fact that it's animated means that, you know, budget wasn't nearly such a concern. It would require like hundreds of millions of dollars to make this a live action show if they were doing the same level of effects that they did in Gravity. But I'm sure that it didn't cost quite that much to make it as an animated show. So this is one that yeah, it's a slightly older one. It's about like 12 years old. Is it 12 years? Yeah, it's like 2004 it sort of finished airing. So God, 2004 is 12 years ago. Wow. Anyway, yeah, sorry, getting completely sidetracked there. It's a really, really just a good show in its own right. Just forget that it's anime. Just treat it as really good, solid, character-driven science fiction, and I think you can enjoy it. They even do things like there's no sound in space, and they use real orbital mechanics at various points. It's such a good show, and it is, it's one that is. It was critically acclaimed at the time. I think the manga was as well, and it just really stands up as like the pinnacle of what good anime can be. So there we go. That's another recommendation for you. Unfortunately, outside of viewing it on various streaming sites, if you want to get a hold of it on DVD, you can't easily. I've been looking, and there is a complete DVD set. But for Region 2, the cheapest I've been able to find it is £150. And there are also separate volumes with about like 4 or 5 episodes per disc. But they're about £20 each. So even if you bought all of those, you're still looking at 120 to 130, maybe even £140. So I would. This is one that I really want to get it. I actually want a DVD, good quality copy. But it's just very difficult to get a hold of without spending ludicrous amounts of money, at least in Region 2, which is really disappointing. I should also maybe on a final note say I watched this subtitled. There is an English dubbed version available. I think there's a low quality rip of it on YouTube that I tried watching the first half episode of, and it's not a great quality dub because they don't. Unlike Steins Gate, which really was a very good quality a good quality dub, yes, because they took the spirit of what was being said and made it, fit the English translation. They fairly strictly stick to an English translation of the Japanese, except everybody then is speaking really, really quickly, and it just makes you think that everybody is like everybody's got ADHD or whatever. It's quite a disconcerting effect in the English dubbed version of Wanderers. So I would definitely recommend the subtitled version if you can stand it. But there is an English dubbed version as well if you can't. It's just it comes across as being very hyperactive because everyone's speaking at a mile a minute. So there you go. There's another review / recommendation for you. I don't know what to call this exactly. It's a very solid show. I should hasten to add there is some actual plot. It's not just them collecting junk for 24 episodes. They do a similar thing to Steins Gate where they spend the first part of the series building up the characters and building up the setting, and then some plot kicks in. Although in the case of Steins Gate, there was plot in those first episodes. It was just a rather slow build-up. But yeah, I highly recommend this. It's a really good show if you like sci-fi in any way, shape or form. And it just ignore the fact that it's anime. It's just a really good show. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, you can leave any comments below, you can hit the like button, you can sub to my channel if you aren't already, and as always, stay tuned for more.